multiverse is a tapestry of infinite realities, each with its own immutable laws. In one universe, a man achieved absolute power through training so absurd it defied logic itself. Limitless strength, invincibility, and the curse of perpetual boredom. In another universe, humanity reached for the stars through cooperation, reason, and an unwavering belief that every problem could be solved through understanding. But what happens when a being of incomprehensible physical might crashes into a civilization built on the premise that might should never be right? Q materialized on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D with his characteristic flash of light and smug grin. Captain Jean-Luc Picard didn't even look up from his ready room P-aid. Q, to what do we owe the displeasure? Oh, Picard, such hostility. And here, I brought you a gift. Q snapped his fingers. I've been watching your precious Federation for centuries now, and I've grown terribly bored with how predictable you've all become. Diplomacy, reason, the prime directive. It's like watching the same play performed over and over with different costumes. Picard finally met Q's eyes. If you're here to test humanity again, test? My dear Captain, I'm here to educate. Q's smile widened. Your Federation operates on the assumption that reason triumphs over force, that any conflict can be resolved through dialogue and understanding. But what happens when you encounter someone for whom all your precious dialogue is irrelevant? Before Picard could respond, the Enterprise shuddered, not from weapons fire or spatial anomaly, but from something punching through the fabric of space-time itself. What was that? Commander Riker was on his feet, the bridge crew scrambling to stations. Sensors detecting a massive spatial distortion, Data reported, his fingers flying across his console. Captain, something has just appeared approximately 20,000 kilometers off our port bow. On screen. The view screen shifted to show empty space. Then, drifting lazily through the void with his arms crossed and a supremely bored expression, was a completely ordinary-looking bald man in a yellow jumpsuit and white cape. In space. Without a suit. That's impossible, Lieutenant Worf growled from tactical. Sensors indicate a single human life form. No environmental suit, no propulsion system, no explanation your science can provide. Q finished, appearing in his customary chair. Allow me to introduce Saitama. Where he comes from, he's a hero. Here? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Picard's jaw tightened. What have you done, Q? I've simply relocated someone from one universe to another. He's completely real, completely dangerous, and completely outside your ability to comprehend. Think of it as a philosophical exercise. What happens when the Federation's ideals of peaceful resolution meet someone who has transcended the very concept of conflict? On the Sun view screen, Saitama appeared to notice the Enterprise. He rotated slowly in zero gravity, looking at the massive starship with the same mild interest one might give a moderately unusual cloud formation. Then he yawned. Hail him, Picard ordered. No response to hail, sir, Worf reported. He does not appear to have any communication equipment. Beam him aboard. Attempting transport now. The transporter chief's voice came through. Captain, we're unable to establish a lock. The transporter is registering his pattern, but it's not making sense. His cellular density is reading at impossible levels. It's as if his body is rejecting the confinement beam. Data's head tilted. Captain, I am detecting unusual readings from the individual. His biological structure appears humanoid, but registers physical properties that violate known limits of carbon-based life. His muscle density alone suggests he should be unable to move under his own mass, yet he demonstrates complete mobility, perhaps a tractor beam. Riker suggested. Engaging tractor beam, Worf announced. The Enterprise's tractor beam, capable of holding vessels 100 times larger than a human, locked onto Saitama. On screen, Saitama looked down at the faint blue glow surrounding him. He raised one hand and made a lazy pulling motion. The Enterprise lurched violently forward. "Report!" Picard gripped his armrest. "He's pulling us," Worf said, disbelief creeping into his Klingon stoicism. "Sir, he's physically pulling the Enterprise toward him using our own tractor beam. Compensating." The beam disengaged. Saitama shrugged and began drifting away, apparently already losing interest. "This is fascinating," Q said, examining his fingernails. "You see, Picard, in his universe, this man trained so hard he broke his limiter, the biological ceiling that governs all living things. He became strong enough to defeat literally any opponent with a single punch. He's invulnerable, inexhaustible, and, tragically, catastrophically bored. If he's so powerful, why bring him here?" Picard demanded. "Because power without context is just potential energy, mon capitaine. In his world, he's a hero with nothing left to punch. In your world, well, you've got Borg, Romulans, Klingons, a whole galaxy of problems that your Federation has been barely managing to navigate. I want to see what happens when someone shows up who can solve any physical problem instantly, but has absolutely no interest in your diplomatic solutions. And if he's hostile?" Q laughed. "Hostile? That's the beautiful part. He's not hostile. He's not anything. He's just there. An invincible, unstoppable force of nature who wants nothing more than to find a grocery store with a good sale. But the galaxy won't see it that way. The Borg will want to assimilate him. The Romulans will want to weaponize him. The Klingons will want to fight him. And you, Picard, will want to understand him." Q stood and spread his arms. "So, here's the test. Can your precious Federation maintain its principles when faced with someone who makes all your military might irrelevant? Can you find common ground with someone who has transcended the need for common ground? Most importantly, can you give a man who has everything actually wants?" Q vanished with a flash, his voice echoing. "Good luck, Captain. You're going to need it." Picard stared at the view screen where Saitama continued his slow drift through space, apparently trying to figure out which direction might lead somewhere interesting. "Number 1, Picard said quietly. "Prepare a shuttle. If we cannot transport him, we'll retrieve him the old-fashioned way. And send word to Starfleet Command. Tell them we have a situation." On the view screen, Saitama spotted something in the distance, perhaps a planet, perhaps a star, and bent his knees slightly in the zero-gravity environment. Then he jumped. The sensors registered a burst of kinetic energy that should have been impossible. Saitama became a streak of motion, crossing thousands of kilometers in seconds, leaving a trail of disrupted subspace in his wake. "Helm, follow that man," Picard ordered. Data looked up from his console. "Captain, at his current velocity, he will reach the Relva 7 colony in approximately 47 minutes. His trajectory will take him directly through their orbital defense grid. Then we have 47 minutes to figure out how to communicate with someone who just punched his way across a solar system." Picard stood. "And to determine whether we've just encountered the galaxy's greatest potential ally or its most dangerous threat. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together." In the cold vacuum of space, Saitama continued his casual journey toward the nearest celestial body that looked like it might have a convenience store. completely unaware that he'd just made first contact with a civilization that was about to have every one of its foundational beliefs tested. The shuttlecraft Goddard streaked through space at maximum impulse. Commander Riker at the helm with Lieutenant Worf beside him and Counselor Deanna Troi monitoring from the rear station. Behind them, the Enterprise maintained a cautious distance. All sensors locked on the anomalous human who had just casually violated every known law of physics. "Any luck establishing communication?" Riker asked. "Negative," Worf growled. "He does not respond to any standard hailing frequencies. It is possible he cannot hear us in the vacuum of space. He shouldn't be able to survive in the vacuum of space," Riker muttered. Yet there he is. Through the viewport, Saitama came into view. He'd stopped his momentum somehow, another impossibility, and was now floating stationary relative to the shuttle, his arms crossed, his expression one of profound disinterest. As the Goddard approached, those impossibly bored eyes tracked the small craft with all the enthusiasm of someone watching paint dry. "I'm sensing confusion," Troi said, her empathic abilities straining. "And boredom. Overwhelming boredom. It's like staring into an emotional void. Commander, I don't think he perceives us as a threat. I don't think he perceives anything as a threat." "Wonderful," Riker said dryly. He activated the external speakers and hoped sound somehow carried in this man's presence. "This is Commander William Riker of the Federation Starship Enterprise. We mean you no harm. Can you understand me?" Saitama's eyes shifted to the shuttle's cockpit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, very slowly, he uncrossed his arms and tapped his ear, then pointed at his mouth, then shrugged. The universal gesture for, "I can't hear you." "At least he's trying to communicate," Troi observed. "That's encouraging." "Open the shuttle bay," Riker ordered. "Let's bring him inside where we can actually talk." The Goddard's small cargo bay door cycled open. Riker gestured broadly through the viewport, pointing at the opening and then at Saitama, then making an exaggerated "come here" motion. Saitama looked at the shuttle bay, then at Riker, then shrugged again. He drifted forward, no propulsion, no maneuvering thrusters, just somehow moving through space, and floated into the cargo bay. The moment he crossed the threshold, the atmospheric force field engaged, flooding the compartment with oxygen. "Pressurization complete," the computer announced. Riker, Worf, and Troi moved to the cargo bay door. Worf's hand rested on his phaser, though even he seemed to recognize the futility of it. The door hissed open. Saitama stood in the center of the cargo bay, his cape settling around him as artificial gravity took hold. He looked around at the metal walls, the equipment lockers, the Federation insignias with the same mild interest he'd shown everything else. Then his eyes landed on the three officers. Hi," Saitama said, his voice flat and completely underwhelmed. "Do you guys know where the nearest supermarket is? There was supposed to be a sale on kelp today." There was a long, stunned silence. "Did he just ask about a supermarket?" Riker whispered to Troi. "I told you, overwhelming boredom," she whispered back. "Commander, I don't think he understands the situation at all." Riker stepped forward, diplomatic training kicking in despite the absurdity. "Welcome aboard. I'm Commander William Riker. This is Lieutenant Worf and Counselor Deanna Troi. We represent the United Federation of Planets. I'm afraid you're a very long way from any supermarket." "Great," Saitama said, deadpan. "Just great. So where am I? This doesn't look like Z-City." "You're in Federation space, approximately 40 light years from Earth." Riker paused. "Wait, did you say light years?" Do you understand the distances involved in space travel? Not really, Saitama admitted. I just kind of jump places. Works fine on Earth. Sometimes the moon. He glanced around again. This is a spaceship, right? I've seen those in manga. Worf's eyes narrowed. How did you survive in space without protection? No species we have encountered can breathe vacuum. Oh, that. Saitama scratched his bald head. I don't really need to breathe much. Held my breath on the moon once. Wasn't a big deal. You held your breath on the moon, Riker repeated slowly. For how long? I don't know. A few minutes. I was busy fighting this alien guy. Saitama's expression remained completely neutral, as if describing a trip to the grocery store rather than surviving lunar conditions. Troy's empathic senses were reeling. Commander, he's telling the truth. At least he believes he's telling the truth. There's no deception in him at all. Just emptiness. It's disconcerting. I'm standing right here, Saitama said. I can hear you. My apologies, Troy said quickly. I'm an empath. I can sense emotions. Yours are unique. Yeah, I get that a lot. Saitama looked toward the cockpit. So, if you guys can't help me find a store, can you at least point me toward a planet? I've been drifting for like an hour. There was this flash of light. Some weird guy in a sparkly outfit said something about testing humanity or whatever. And then I was floating in space. Again. Riker and Worf exchanged glances. Q, they said simultaneously. You know him? Saitama asked. Unfortunately, Riker said. He's complicated. An omnipotent being who likes to play games with humanity. If he brought you here, it wasn't random. Omnipotent? For the first time, a flicker of something crossed Saitama's face. Interest, hope. Like he can do anything, fight anyone. He can manipulate reality itself, Worf confirmed. He has transported the Enterprise across the galaxy, changed history, created entire scenarios from nothing. The hope, if that's what it was, died instantly. Oh, one of those. Had a psychic try to fight me once with mind powers. Didn't work out for him. Saitama's shoulders slumped slightly. Figures. Even in space, I can't find a decent fight. A decent fight? Riker's mind raced, trying to reconcile this ordinary-looking man with the sensor readings that suggested he could pull a starship through space with his bare hands. I'm not sure I understand. What exactly are you? I'm a hero for fun, Saitama said simply. Well, for work now, technically. Hero Association and all that. But mostly I just punch monsters. It's pretty boring. Boring, Worf repeated, his warrior's pride clearly insulted. Combat is the ultimate test of honor and skill. How can it be boring? Saitama looked at Worf with those dead, emotionless eyes. When you can beat anything with one punch, yeah, it gets boring. Every fight ends the same way. Every monster, every villain, every unbeatable enemy. One punch? Sometimes I don't even need to be serious. He sighed, the sound carrying the weight of existential despair. I trained too hard. I broke through my limiter. Now nothing is challenging anymore. The cargo bay fell silent. Troy looked horrified, her empathic abilities picking up the vast emptiness of a man who had achieved absolute power and found it completely unfulfilling. Riker searched for words. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, well, Saitama shrugged. That's life. Or my life, anyway. So, are you going to take me to a planet or what? I'm getting hungry. Before Riker could respond, Worf's communicator chirped. Enterprise to away team. Captain Picard requests your immediate return. We have incoming vessels. 4 Romulan warbirds decloaking at our position. Worf's hand went to his phaser. Romulans. They must have been monitoring our communications. Or Q told them, Riker said grimly. He looked at Saitama. We need to return to the Enterprise. There may be a hostile situation developing. Hostile? A spark, just a tiny spark, of interest flickered in Saitama's eyes. Like a fight? Possibly. The Romulans are not known for friendly visits. Huh. Saitama started walking toward the cockpit. Okay, let's go. Maybe space aliens will be different from Earth monsters. As they strapped in for the return trip, Riker couldn't shake the image of those empty eyes briefly lighting up at the mention of combat. This man, this impossibly powerful, impossibly bored man, was searching for something to make him feel alive again. And the Romulan Empire had just volunteered to try. The Goddard spun around and accelerated back toward the Enterprise, where 4 D-Deridex-class warbirds hung in space like massive predatory birds. On the flagship's bridge, Commander Tomalak studied the sensor readings of the anomalous human with intense interest. Inform the Tal Shiar, Tomalak ordered. Tell them we have found something that could shift the balance of power in the entire quadrant, and prepare the disruptors. If we cannot negotiate for this weapon, we will take it by force. The Goddard slipped into the Enterprise's shuttle bay just as red alert klaxons began wailing throughout the massive starship. Saitama followed Riker, Worf, and Troy through the corridors with his hands in his pockets, looking around at the sleek Federation technology with mild curiosity, while crew members rushed past them to battle stations. You guys seem pretty worked up, Saitama observed as they entered the turbolift. Bridge, Riker commanded. The lift hummed to life. 4 Romulan warbirds represent significant firepower. Each vessel carries enough weapons to level a planetary surface. When 4 of them appear simultaneously, it's never good news. Huh. Saitama didn't seem particularly concerned. So, like space pirates? More like a hostile empire with cloaking technology, superior tactical training, and a tendency toward deception. Worf growled. The Romulans respect only strength and cunning. Well, strength I've got covered, Saitama said, with his characteristic deadpan delivery. The turbo lift doors opened onto the bridge. Captain Picard stood from his command chair, his eyes immediately locking onto the bald man in the yellow jumpsuit. For a moment, the legendary captain's composure wavered. Here stood the being that Q had dropped into his universe, the man who had just pulled a starship with his bare hands. Captain, Riker said, stepping aside. May I present? Actually, I'm not sure we got your full name. Saitama, the hero said simply. Just Saitama. Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. Picard extended his hand, a gesture of civility even in crisis. Saitama shook it with a grip that seemed completely normal. No crushing strength, no intimidation, just a regular handshake. Mr. Saitama, you've arrived at a complicated moment. Yeah, I heard. Space Romulans or something. On screen, Picard ordered, turning to the view screen. 4 massive warbirds hung in formation, their distinctive double-hulled design giving them the appearance of predatory birds frozen mid-strike. Each vessel dwarfed the Enterprise, their disruptor arrays already powered and ready. Incoming transmission, Worf announced. On screen. The view screen shifted to show Commander Tomalak, a veteran Romulan officer whose reputation for ruthless efficiency was well known throughout Starfleet. His sharp features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile on a less calculating face. Captain Picard, how fortuitous to encounter you here. Commander Tomalak, Picard replied coolly. This is Federation space. Your presence here with 4 warbirds constitutes a violation of treaty. Oh, I don't think we need to stand on such formalities, Picard. Not when you're harboring something that belongs to neither the Federation nor any known power in this galaxy. Tomalak's eyes shifted, clearly looking at something off-screen, sensor readings, perhaps. We detected an anomalous arrival in this sector. A humanoid of unknown origin with unprecedented energy readings. I believe you have made contact with this individual. We have encountered a visitor, yes. One who was brought here against his will by Q. He is under our protection. Tomalak's smile widened. Protection? How noble. I'm certain the Romulan Star Empire could offer much more suitable accommodations. We have facilities designed to study and harness unique biological specimens. I am not a specimen, Saitama said suddenly, his flat voice somehow cutting through the tension. He'd wandered closer to the view screen, staring at Tomalak with those bored, emotionless eyes. And I'm definitely not interested in being studied by anyone. Tomalak's expression shifted slightly. Ah, the anomaly speaks. Tell me, creature, do you understand the power that stands before you? Each of my warbirds could reduce your Federation protectors to atoms. Surrender peacefully, cooperate with Romulan scientists, and you will be treated with the respect your unique nature deserves. Respect, Saitama repeated. He looked at Picard. Is he threatening you guys because of me? The Romulans are threatening us because that is their nature, Picard said carefully. But yes, your presence has complicated the situation. Saitama turned back to Tomalak. Okay, here's the thing. I just got here. I have no idea where I am. I'm hungry. I missed a sale on kelp. And now you're talking about studying me like I'm some kind of lab rat. I'm having a really bad day. Your day is about to get considerably worse, Tomalak replied. Picard, you have 1 minute to transfer the anomaly to Romulan custody. Refuse, and we will disable your vessel and take what we want by force. Picard's jaw set. The Federation does not trade in sentient beings, Commander. Mr. Saitama is free to make his own choices. 50 seconds. Captain, Data called from Ops. The Romulan vessels are charging weapons and raising shields. I am also detecting transporter signatures. They are attempting to beam Mr. Saitama directly to their flagship. Transport in progress. Worf confirmed, then frowned at his console. No, transport has failed. Reading the same pattern buffer errors as before. They cannot establish a lock. On screen, Tomalak's confident expression flickered with irritation. Interesting. Your biology resists our transporters. No matter. We will do this the old-fashioned way. He leaned forward. Fire. Brace for impact, Riker shouted. 4 Romulan warbirds unleashed their disruptor arrays simultaneously. Emerald beams of devastating energy converged on the Enterprise, slamming into the deflector shields with enough force to light up the entire electromagnetic spectrum. The bridge shook violently, consoles sparking. Shields holding at 73%, Worf reported. They are using precision strikes, attempting to disable rather than destroy. They want the ship intact so they can board, Picard said grimly. Return fire, full spread, target, their weapons arrays. The Enterprise's phaser banks opened up, orange beams lancing across space to impact against Romulan shields. One warbird's shields flickered but held. They weren't even scratched. This is ridiculous, Saitama said. Everyone turned to look at him. He was watching the view screen with an expression that might have been annoyance. You're all shooting light beams at each other like it's some kind of laser tag game. Just go over there and punch them. It's not that simple, Picard began. Why not? Saitama walked toward the view screen as if he could step through it. They're right there. Big green spaceships. How hard can it be? Mr. Saitama, those vessels are protected by deflector shields capable of withstanding megaton range explosions. Their hulls are reinforced duranium alloy meters thick. You cannot simply... Saitama was already walking toward the turbo lift. Which way to the exit? The exit? Riker stared. You want to go outside? In the middle of a space battle? Yeah. I'm going to go talk to them. Talk to them? Worf's warrior instincts were clearly torn between respect for the intention and disbelief at the method. They are attempting to capture you. There will be no talking. Then I'll punch them until they feel like talking. Saitama pressed the turbolift button. Seriously, which way? Another barrage of disruptor fire rocked the Enterprise. Shields dropped to 47%. One of the warbirds was moving into flanking position. Captain, they are preparing to deploy boarding parties, Data reported. I am detecting massive power buildup in their weapons. They intend to disable our warp core. Picard made a decision. He'd spent a career navigating impossible situations through diplomacy and tactical brilliance. But Q had introduced a variable that operated outside every parameter he understood. Perhaps the only way forward was to see what that variable could actually do. Mr. Worf, escort Mr. Saitama to Shuttle Bay 2. Open the bay doors. Captain? Worf looked shocked. You heard me, Lieutenant. If Mr. Saitama wishes to negotiate directly with the Romulans, who are we to stop him? Picard's eyes never left the view screen. After all, he is a free individual making his own choice. Saitama nodded. Thanks. I'll try not to break your spaceships too badly. As Worf and Saitama disappeared into the turbolift, Riker leaned close to Picard. Sir, are we really letting him just go out there? Number one, we couldn't stop him if we tried. Q made that quite clear. Picard watched as another disruptor volley hammered their shields. Besides, I'm curious to see what happens when Romulan military doctrine encounters something that renders military doctrine irrelevant. In the turbolift, Worf studied Saitama with barely concealed skepticism. You understand that Romulan warbirds are equipped with plasma torpedoes that can vaporize organic matter? That their tractor beams can rip apart asteroids? That you will be facing weapons designed to destroy starships? Uh-huh. Saitama cracked his knuckles. Sounds like a Tuesday. The doors opened to Shuttle Bay 2. Worf moved to the control panel and initiated the bay door cycle. The massive doors began to grind open, revealing the star-studded darkness of space beyond, and the 4 Romulan warbirds looming like jade-colored monuments to military might. The atmospheric force field will hold until you cross the threshold, Worf explained. After that, you are on your own. Cool? Saitama walked toward the opening, his cape fluttering in the artificial breeze created by the force field. He paused at the threshold and looked back. Hey, if I do break something out there, is that going to cause problems? Worf's expression was unreadable. Romulan vessels are constructed to withstand antimatter explosions. I doubt you will break anything. Yeah, people keep saying that. Saitama's tone carried the weight of countless, shattered expectations. They're usually wrong. He stepped through the force field and into the vacuum of space, drifting away from the Enterprise with his arms crossed, floating toward 4 warbirds that could each reduce a planet to rubble. On the bridge, every eye was locked on the view screen as sensors tracked the solitary human floating through a battlefield like he was taking a casual stroll. Tomalak is hailing us, Worf reported from Tactical. He appears confused. On screen, Tomalak's face filled the view screen, his composed demeanor cracking. Picard, What is the meaning of this? You've ejected the anomaly into space? He chose to meet with you directly, Commander. I merely respected his wishes. This is some kind of trick? Tomalak cut off as his attention shifted to something off-screen. His eyes widened fractionally, the most emotion any Enterprise crew member had ever seen from him. He's approaching the flagship. His velocity is... That's impossible. On the Enterprise's view screen, Saitama had somehow accelerated without thrusters or propulsion, streaking toward the lead warbird like a missile. The massive vessel loomed before him, its shields glowing as they detected the incoming object. Saitama pulled back his fist. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Riker muttered, and the hero threw the most casual punch in the history of interstellar warfare. There was no sound in the vacuum, no dramatic roar, no crackling energy signature. Just a single, deliberate motion. A simple extension of the arm from a man who looked utterly unimpressed by the multi-million-ton warship looming before him. Saitama's fist connected with the Romulan flagship's forward deflector shield. The shield did not flare, resist, or absorb the impact. It shattered. Not like glass, but like a soap bubble encountering a solid object, a silent, instantaneous pop as the invisible energy matrix ceased to exist. The kinetic energy of the punch, unimpeded by the now vanished barrier, carried forward. It struck the warbird's hull at a precise point just below the command deck. On the Enterprise bridge, the readings were so absurd that for a second, the crew thought the sensors had malfunctioned. A localized kinetic impact, registering in the petaton range, enough force to crack a planet's mantle, had been delivered to a surface area no larger than a human fist. The laws of physics screamed in protest. The Romulan ship did not explode. It deformed. A perfect hemispherical crater 30 meters wide punched inward, the duranium-tritanium alloy flowing like liquid under impossible pressure before freezing solid again. Conduits, structural supports, and decks were compressed into a singularity of a mangled metal at the epicenter. The shockwave traveled through the ship's skeleton. Secondary explosions bloomed along the vessel's starboard side as power relays overloaded and plasma conduits ruptured. The massive warbird, a symbol of Romulan imperial might, was sent spinning out of formation, trailing atmosphere and debris, its forward weapons arrays crumpled into uselessness. Silence reigned on the Enterprise bridge, broken only by the beeping of consoles. "Report?" Picard said, his voice hushed. "The lead warbird has been disabled," Data stated, his brow furrowed as he processed the information. "Its primary weapons and propulsion are offline. Hull breach on decks 12 through 20. Life support failing in multiple sections. Casualties significant." "Shields?" Riker asked, staring at the screen. "Completely neutralized by the initial impact. The energy matrix appears to have been overloaded and dispersed by pure kinetic force. Captain, the power required to achieve that effect with a single physical strike exceeds the total energy output of our warp core over a standard hour." Picard watched as Saitama, floating serenely in the debris field, turned his head toward the other three warbirds. The remaining Romulan commanders did not wait for orders. Emerald disruptor beams lanced out from all three vessels, converging on the small, yellow-clad figure. Saitama didn't dodge. He let the beams hit him. The energy washed over him, coruscating around his form in a dazzling display of failed annihilation. When the barrage ceased a moment later, he was still there. His jumpsuit slightly scorched at the edges of his cape. He looked down at his sleeve, brushed off a bit of ash, and frowned. "Hey." His voice came through the comm channel Worf had hastily opened to his suitless form. Another impossibility. "This is a genuine jumpsuit. Knock it off." On the view screen, Tomalak's face had lost all its arrogant composure. He was on his feet on his own damaged bridge, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "All vessels, target that creature with everything. Plasma torpedoes, full spread." Globes of superheated green plasma, capable of melting through a continent's crust, shot from the warbirds. They streaked toward Saitama, their paths leaving ripples in local space-time. Saitama sighed, a sound of profound inconvenience that echoed across the bridge speakers. He raised his open hand and gave a lazy, backhanded swat. The lead plasma torpedo didn't detonate. It reversed course, hurtling back toward the warbird that had fired it at 10 times its original velocity. It struck the ship's underbelly and detonated, vaporizing an entire launch bay. The other torpedoes he simply punched, causing them to vanish in silent, miniature supernovae of harmless light. "This is getting annoying," Saitama announced. He bent his knees in the zero-gravity environment and pushed off against nothing. He became a blur. He appeared next to the second warbird's starboard nacelle. A light tap of his finger against the housing. The entire nacelle assembly sheared off from the stress fractures that radiated out from the point of contact, tumbling away into the void. The ship listed, thrusters firing wildly to compensate. He was already at the third ship. He placed his palm against its main hull, near the bridge module. He didn't push. He just held it there for a second, then removed it. A perfect palm-shaped section of the hull, 5 decks deep, simply vanished, atomized into its constituent particles. The ship's internal atmosphere explosively decompressed, creating a temporary geyser of freezing gas and unfortunate crew members. The fourth and final warbird, seeing its comrades crippled in seconds, attempted to flee. It spun on its axis, its warp nacelles glowing with building energy. Saitama appeared directly in its path, a few hundred meters from its bow. He crossed his arms. "Seriously, you started this." The warbird's commander, faced with the choice of hitting the being or surrendering, chose poorly. He ordered full impulse ahead, hoping to ram the nuisance. Saitama didn't move. The colossal ship, a mass of millions of tons moving at a significant fraction of light speed, struck him. The result was not a collision, but a transformation. The warbird's forward section didn't crush Saitama. It crumpled around him. As if he were an immovable spike and the ship were made of foil, the entire bow compressed inward in a screaming concertina of metal. The ship's momentum died instantly, converted into the catastrophic deformation of its own structure. It drifted to a dead stop, a ruined sculpture of what had once been a warship. Silence again. Saitama floated back toward the Enterprise, pausing to look at his handiwork. 4 of the most advanced warships in the Alpha Quadrant floated around him, utterly incapacitated. He reached the Shuttle Bay 2 force field and passed through it, his boots clicking on the deck as gravity reclaimed him. On the bridge, Counselor Troy gripped her seat, her face pale. "Captain," the emotions from the Romulan ships, terror, disbelief, agony. "It's overwhelming." "Hail the lead warbird," Picard ordered, his own mind struggling to process the display. This wasn't warfare. It wasn't combat. It was pest control. Tomalak's face appeared. His bridge was dark, lit only by emergency lights. Smoke hung in the air. He looked decades older. "Picard," he rasped. "Commander, do you require assistance? We can beam your wounded to our sickbay." Tomalak's eyes were wide, haunted. What is that?" "He told you his name. Saitama." "That is not a name. That is a natural disaster with a face." Tomalak shook his head, a gesture of pure, shattered comprehension. "We will withdraw. What remains of us. Tell him." The Romulan Star Empire acknowledges his power. The transmission cut off. One by one, the crippled warbirds, using maneuvering thrusters and emergency power, began the long, slow turn to limp back toward the neutral zone. The turbolift doors opened. Saitama walked onto the bridge, followed by a visibly stunned Worf. Saitama's expression was the same as when he'd left. Mildly bored, slightly inconvenienced. "Okay," Saitama said, addressing Picard. "I talked to them. They're leaving now." He glanced around. "So, about that planet with a grocery store?" Picard stood, facing the most dangerous being he had ever encountered. A being who had just rewritten the rules of engagement for an entire quadrant in under 3 minutes. Not through strategy, not through technology, but through the sheer, universe-bending weight of a bored man's fist. "Mr. Saitama," Picard began, choosing his words with the care of a man defusing a bomb that had already gone off. "I believe we need to have a discussion about context." "Context?" "Yes. About what you just did. About what it means. About why you can't simply punch your way through this universe." Saitama tilted his head. "Why not? It worked." "It worked," Picard agreed, his voice firming with the steel of his convictions. "But at what cost? You didn't defeat an enemy, Mr. Saitama. You demonstrated that their entire existence, their ships, their weapons, their strategies, are meaningless before you. You have shown the Romulan Empire, a proud and paranoid civilization, that they are powerless. Men and women are dead or wounded on those ships, not because of a war or a principle, but because they annoyed you during your search for kelp. For the first time, a flicker of something other than boredom crossed Saitama's face. It looked like confusion, then a dawning, uncomfortable realization. I didn't kill them. I just broke their ships. They shot at me first. You used a level of force so disproportionate it borders on the apocalyptic," Picard pressed. "In this universe, power carries responsibility. The Federation was founded on the idea that power exists to protect life, to enable understanding, not to render it irrelevant." Saitama was silent for a long moment. He looked at the view screen, at the retreating, ruined warbirds. "On my world," he said quietly, "there are monsters. Giant creatures, aliens, mad scientists. They attack cities. They hurt people. I punch them. They go away. People are safe. That's it. That's the whole thing." He met Picard's gaze. "Your way seems really complicated." "It is complicated," Picard admitted. "But it is how we have built a coalition of over 150 worlds. It is how we seek to better ourselves. You have a power I cannot fathom, Mr. Saitama. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you be a force that ends conflicts, or a force that ends civilizations?" Before Saitama could answer, Data interrupted, his voice carrying a rare note of urgency. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a new vessel approaching at high warp. Its configuration and energy signature are unmistakable. Report, Mr. Data. It is a Borg cube. It has just entered the system. It is on an intercept course. For us." All eyes turned back to the view screen. Geometric, nightmarish, black cube, larger than a city, slid into sensor range. It moved with a silent, chilling purpose. "They must have detected the energy signatures from the engagement," Riker said. Worf's hand tightened on his console. "They are hailing us. Standard Borg greeting." Picard's face hardened. On speaker. A cold, synthetic chorus filled the bridge. "We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile. The message repeated. Then, a new phrase was added, a phrase no one had ever heard from the Borg before. You harbor the one who is perfection. You will transfer the perfect biological specimen to us. Its distinctiveness will be assimilated. Resistance to this is illogical. They weren't just here for the Enterprise. They were here for Saitama. Saitama looked at the monstrous cube on the screen, then at Picard. The uncomfortable realization was gone, replaced by that same flat curiosity. So, Saitama said, are these guys monsters? Picard took a deep breath, the weight of two existential crises settling on his shoulders. In a sense, yes. They are the ultimate force of assimilation. They cannot be reasoned with. They will not stop. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched Saitama's lips. It wasn't cruel. It was the smile of a man who had just seen a cloud on the horizon that might, just might, contain a single drop of rain in a lifelong drought. Okay, Saitama said, cracking his neck. Let's talk about this responsibility thing after I go say hello. The atmosphere on the bridge shifted from stunned horror at Saitama's display to cold, tactical dread at the arrival of the Borg. The Borg cube hung in the void, a silent monument to mechanistic consumption, its surface pulsing with green energy. It made no further aggressive moves. It simply waited, a predator confident its prey had nowhere to run. Captain, Data reported, his fingers flying across the ops panel. The Borg cube is scanning us with a level of intensity I have never before recorded. Scans are focused almost exclusively on Shuttle Bay 2 and the surrounding area, where Mr. Saitama recently departed and returned. They have identified him. Shields at maximum, Worf ordered, his voice a low growl. All weapons armed. Target the cube's primary power nodes. Belay that order, Picard said, his eyes fixed on the cube. His own history with the Borg, the trauma of assimilation, the loss of his humanity as Locutus, threatened to rise, but he forced it down with iron, discipline. They are not attacking, not yet. They want him. They called him perfection. Riker turned from the view screen, his face grim. They see his biological readings as the ultimate prize, a being of unlimited physical capability with no apparent technological augmentation. If they assimilate him, understand what makes him work, the entire universe would be defenseless, Picard finished. He looked at Saitama, who was watching the cube with the analytical interest of a man examining an unusual insect. Mr. Saitama, you asked if they were monsters. They are worse. They are a collective consciousness, a hive mind. They assimilate individuals, erase their minds, their identities, and turn them into drones. They absorb technology. They seek to make all life like them, uniform, perfect in their view. Saitama listened, his head tilted. So they're like a really aggressive hive of space bees that want to make everyone the same? A crude but not inaccurate analogy, Data offered. And they want to assimilate me? Turn me into one of them? That is their stated objective, Picard confirmed. Saitama was silent for a moment. Then he shrugged. Okay, that sounds annoying and really boring. Being the same as everyone else is the worst. He paused, a thought occurring to him. Wait, if they're a hive mind, does that mean if I punch the main one, all the little ones stop? Picard and Riker exchanged a look. The simplistic logic was terrifying in its potential efficacy. The Borg Queen is the central node of the collective, Picard explained. But the cube itself is a distributed intelligence. Destroying it would be a significant blow, but the collective would remain, and they would learn from the encounter. They adapt, Mr. Saitama. If you use a tactic against them, they will develop a countermeasure. Adapt, huh? Saitama looked at his fist, then back at the cube. A faint, almost wistful smile appeared. Okay, let's see them adapt to this, He began walking toward the turbo lift again. Wait, Picard commanded, authority ringing in his voice. Saitama stopped and looked back. You cannot simply rush out there. The Borg are not Romulan warships. They will analyze your approach. They will attempt to capture you with tractor beams, energy dampening fields, or assimilation tubules. Their goal is not to destroy you, but to possess you. Your power would become theirs. Saitama considered this. So they're tricky. Exceedingly. So what's your plan, Captain? Talk to them? Picard stood straight. We will attempt to communicate, to make them understand that you are a sentient being, not a resource. Riker looked incredulous. Captain, with all due respect, negotiating with the Borg has never worked. Not once. Then perhaps it is time for a first, Picard said, moving to the center of the bridge. Hail them. Worf complied, his expression doubtful. The chilling chorus returned. We are the Borg. You will transfer the perfect specimen. You have 30 of your seconds to comply. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. The individual you refer to is named Saitama. He is a sentient being with rights and autonomy. He is not a specimen to be collected. Your demand is a violation of the most fundamental. Sentience is irrelevant. Perfection is required. 20 seconds. Picard's jaw tightened. You cannot have him. Your resistance is noted. It is futile. 15 seconds. We will disable your vessel and extract the specimen. The Borg cube began to move. It didn't bank or turn like a conventional ship. It simply reoriented itself, presenting a broad face to the Enterprise. Hundreds of tractor beam emitters glowed to life across its surface. Tractor beams locking on, Worf shouted. Shields are buckling. They are attempting to pull us into a docking bay. The Enterprise groaned, a deep metallic stress sound that vibrated through the deck plates. On the view screen, the cube grew larger, a geometric mouth opening to swallow them. Warp power now. Get us out of here, Riker ordered. Warp engines are offline. Tractor beams have a harmonic dampening effect on our nacelles. Picard turned to Saitama, who was watching the cube approach with detached curiosity. Mr. Saitama, if you have a method of dealing with tricky opponents, now would be the time. Yeah, Saitama said, waving a hand. I'm thinking. He scratched his chin. So, if I just go punch the cube, they'll probably try to grab me on the way, right? Almost certainly. And if they grab me, they'll try to stick those tubey things in me. To inject nanoprobes that will begin assimilation, yes. Saitama nodded, as if working through a moderately interesting puzzle. I don't like needles. He looked at Picard. Okay, here's my plan. You guys make a distraction. Get them to look at you. I'll do the punching thing. It's pretty much my only move, but I've refined it. A distraction? Riker asked. Against a Borg cube? Fire everything we have, Picard ordered without hesitation. Phasers, torpedoes, target their tractor beam emitters. Make it as bright and loud as possible. The Enterprise, held in the cube's inexorable grip, unleashed its full arsenal. Orange phaser beams and glittering photon torpedoes streaked across the diminishing space, impacting against the cube's unimaginably thick hull. Explosions flowered across its surface, carving blackened scars into the dark metal. Tractor beams flickered but held. The Borg adaptation had already begun. Their shields were modulating to better absorb directed energy. The cube ignored the assault completely, continuing its slow, relentless pull. "Not working, Captain," Worf reported. "They are adapting to our frequency modulations faster than we can cycle." On the edge of the bridge, Saitama cracked his knuckles. "Good enough. They're looking at you." He walked to the nearest. Bulkhead reared back his fist and punched a hole straight through the outer hull of the Enterprise. Alarms shrieked. "Hull breach on the bridge. Deck 1. The computer announced as atmosphere rushed toward the new opening. "Force field on that breach, now!" Riker yelled. But Saitama was already gone. He had simply stepped out into space through the man-sized hole he'd created. He just punched his way off the ship, Data observed, fascinated. In the void, Saitama oriented himself. The Borg cube was immense, a wall of dark geometry only a few kilometers away now. The Enterprise, a toy caught in its green-tinged grasp. Dozens of tractor beams still glowed, holding the starship fast. He saw the open docking bay, a cavernous maw waiting to receive its prize. He didn't fly toward it. He walked. He pushed off gently from the Enterprise's hull and began striding through space as if it were solid ground, each step covering hundreds of meters. Borg sensors tracked him immediately. A dozen tractor beams disengaged from the Enterprise and swung toward him, forming a lattice of emerald energy designed to ensnare. Saitama didn't dodge. He let the first beam catch him. It wrapped around him, its energy crackling. On the Borg cube, the power output to that emitter spiked, then overloaded. The beam shattered. The emitter exploded. He continued walking, the fragments of the beam dissipating around him. More beams latched on. They too strained, sparked, and failed. It was as if he were a hole in reality that their technology could not conceptually grasp, let alone physically restrain. The Borg response was instantaneous and terrifyingly efficient. They stopped trying to hold him. They tried to cut him apart. From apertures across the cube's surface, lances of cutting green energy, more refined and powerful than standard disruptors, shot forth, aiming to dissect him molecule by molecule. The beams converged on the walking man, creating a nexus of destructive force that could slice a starship in half. The light was blinding. When it faded, Saitama was still walking. His jumpsuit had a new, neat cut across the chest. He looked down at it, his expression finally shifting to one of genuine irritation. "Hey, this is my favorite jumpsuit." He stopped walking. He bent his knees. In the silent theater of space, he performed a movement so simple it was profound. A jump. Not a leap. A jump. The kind a child does on a playground, but executed with a force that warped local space-time. He vanished from the sensors of both the Enterprise and the Borg cube. He reappeared an instant later, not at the cube's surface, but embedded halfway through it. He had jumped into the cube, creating a tunnel of shattered machinery and compressed deck plates simply by passing through them. He stood up inside a Borg chamber, surrounded by gleaming technology, green lights, and the low hum of 1,000 systems. Droids turned toward him, their humanoid components fused, with cold metal, assimilation tubules extending. "Perfection detected. Commence assimilation." A dozen drones lunged. Saitama sighed. Conveyor belt. He didn't throw a punch. He just started walking forward again. Drones that touched him didn't get assimilated. They disintegrated. They didn't explode. They came apart at the molecular level, their cybernetic and biological components separating into a fine dust that floated in the artificially generated gravity. He walked through a hallway, and the hallway ceased to exist behind him, replaced by a perfectly smooth, Saitama-shaped tunnel that bored deeper and deeper into the heart of the cube. Alarms of a kind the Borg had never needed before began to sound. Structural integrity alerts, catastrophic system failures. the loss of thousands of drones in a single localized event. The collective mind, vast and distributed, focused its entire attention on this single, unstoppable point of failure moving through its body, on the Enterprise. The tractor beams suddenly died. The ship lurched free. "What's happening?" Picard demanded, watching the view screen that showed the cube, now with a visible, glowing fissure running through a quarter of its structure. Data studied his readings, his positronic brain struggling to compute. The Borg cube is experiencing massive internal structural failure. Power levels are fluctuating wildly. I am reading a path of pure vacuum and annihilated matter cutting through decks 34 through 78, heading directly for the central plexus. The entity responsible is moving at approximately walking speed. Inside the cube, Saitama reached a large, open chamber. In the center, encased in a nexus of glowing tubes and data streams, was the Borg Queen. Or rather, a Borg Queen, a manifestation of the collective will for this vessel. Her pale, partially organic face showed no fear, only intense, analytical curiosity. "You are perfection," the voice echoed through the chamber, both from her lips and from the walls themselves. "Your biological distinctiveness defies all known parameters. You will be assimilated. Your strength will become ours. Resistance. Let me guess," Saitama interrupted, stopping a few meters away. "Is futile." "Yeah, I heard." He looked around at the pulsing organic technology. "This is all really creepy and loud. You cannot destroy us. We are the Borg. We are legend. If this drone is destroyed, another will take its place. If this cube is destroyed, 1,000 others will come. We will analyze your attack. We will adapt. You cannot punch a concept." Saitama looked at the Queen, then at his fist. He seemed to think about this. "You're probably right," he said, his voice flat. "Punching a concept sounds hard." "Then you will comply." "No," Saitama said. "I'm not going to comply, and I'm not going to try to punch a concept." He raised his fist. "I'm just going to punch you, and this big, dumb, creepy cube you live in, because you wrecked my jumpsuit, and you're being really annoying." He took a single step forward. The Queen's hand rose, a spray of nanoprobes shooting toward him, a cloud designed to consume and convert. Saitama exhaled, a puff of air in the controlled atmosphere. The puff of air contained more kinetic energy than a photon torpedo. It vaporized the nanoprobes, slammed into the Queen's enclosure, and shattered it. The Queen was thrown back against her mechanical throne, her organic parts pulverized, her cybernetic frame crumpling like foil. Adaptation. Impossible. Error. The voice gurgled and died. Saitama looked at the ruined central chamber. The lights were flickering. The deep hum was turning into a discordant whine. "Okay," he said to himself. "Now for the cube." He bent his knees again, this time in the confined space. He jumped straight up. He punched through deck after deck after deck, a human projectile rocketing toward the cube's outer hull. He burst out of the top of the cube like a bullet exiting a block of gelatin, trailing a plume of debris and plasma. He landed on the cube's outer surface, crouched on the dark metal. He placed a single palm against it. "Serious punch," he muttered. He pushed. The Borg cube did not explode. It imploded. Every structural member, every deck plate, every power conduit within a 5-kilometer radius of his hand simultaneously experienced a force exceeding gravitational collapse. The entire massive structure compressed inward, folding into itself with a silent, terrifying elegance. In less than a second, the city-sized cube was reduced to a sphere of super-dense, molten scrap metal no larger than a shuttlecraft. The sphere hung in space for a moment, then, robbed of all structural integrity, drifted apart into a cloud of fine metallic dust. Saitama floated above the dissipating remains. He looked at the scorched tear in his jumpsuit again and sighed. Great. Now I need a new one. On the Enterprise bridge, there was no celebration, only a profound, echoing silence. They had just witnessed the total annihilation of a Borg cube by a single man. Not a defeat, an erasure. Picard finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Mr. Worf, open a channel to Starfleet Command. Priority 1. Tell them we have a situation that defies all protocol. And tell them to recall every ship from the Romulan neutral zone. The balance of power in the galaxy has just been reset by a bored man in a damaged jumpsuit. The dust cloud that had been a Borg cube glittered in the starlight, a monument to impossible power. Inside the Enterprise, the silence was thicker than the vacuum outside. Crew members moved with hushed steps, their eyes darting to the main view screen, then away, as if witnessing a sacred and terrifying event. Saitama re-entered the bridge through the same hole he'd made, the atmospheric force field shimmering behind him. He brushed some metallic Borg dust from his shoulder. The tear in his jumpsuit was stark against the yellow fabric. He looked at Picard. So, that was weird. They didn't really put up much of a fight. He sounded almost disappointed. Picard found his voice, though it felt alien in his own throat. Mr. Saitama, what you just did, no single being, no fleet, has ever accomplished that. You have destroyed a Borg cube. Utterly. Yeah, well, it was in my way. Saitama looked around the bridge. The awe and fear radiating from the crew seemed to finally penetrate his apathy. He shifted uncomfortably. Hey, don't look at me like that. It was just a big metal box. Just a big metal box that has consumed entire civilizations, Riker said, a note of barely restrained emotion in his voice. That box was responsible for the deaths of thousands at Wolf 359. It nearly conquered Earth. It took the combined forces of a fleet and a miraculous circumstance to stop one. Saitama processed this. His bored expression didn't change, but his eyes seemed to look inward for a moment. Oh, so it was a bad guy box. That's good then. He paused. Those people it consumed. Are they okay now? Troy, still pale, shook her head. No, they're gone. Assimilated. Their individuality erased. Saitama's lips pressed into a thin line. That's not good. I just turned the box into dust. I didn't fix the people inside. You couldn't have, Picard said, his own Borg trauma lending weight to his words. Once assimilation begins, it is nearly irreversible. You ended the threat. You prevented it from claiming more victims. By any measure of my command, that is a victory of staggering proportions. But it doesn't feel like one, Saitama stated, not asking. It was the most perceptive thing he'd said. No, Picard admitted. It does not. Because victory in the Federation is measured not just in enemies destroyed, but in principles upheld, in lives saved and bettered. What you did was necessary, but it was also absolute. The comm system chirped, breaking the heavy mood. Bridge, this is engineering. We've stabilized the hull breach on Deck 1, but I've got a fist-sized hole going through 12 bulkheads, the main optical data trunk, and the primary plasma conduit for the port impulse engine. Sir, how did this happen? Before Picard could answer, Data interjected. Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission from Starfleet Command. Fleet Admiral Shanthi is on standby. On screen. The weary but sharp face of Fleet Admiral Shanthi replaced the view of the dissipating Borg debris. Captain Picard, we received your preliminary alert. The situation is unclear. Long-range sensors from Outpost Sierra just went dark after detecting a massive subspace disturbance and energy signatures consistent with Borg cube destruction. Then we lost their signal. Explain. Picard took a steadying breath. Admiral, the situation is unprecedented. The entity known as Q transported an individual from another universe to our vicinity. His name is Saitama. Picard moved aside, allowing the Admiral to see the bald man in the torn yellow suit. He possesses physical capabilities that defy our understanding of physics. He has, in the last hour, single-handedly disabled a squadron of Romulan warbirds and obliterated a Borg cube. Admiral Shanti's composure didn't break, but her eyes widened by a millimeter. She stared at Saitama, who gave a small, awkward wave. I see, she said slowly. And his intentions? Thus far, he has responded to direct threats with overwhelming force. His stated primary goal is to find a grocery store. There was a long pause on the channel. A grocery store. Yes, Admiral. Shanti's fingers tapped on her desk off-screen, a sure sign of her racing thoughts. Captain, this individual represents an existential-level variable. The Romulans will be in chaos. The Borg, if the collective learns of this, their response will be unimaginable. You are ordered to proceed at best speed to Starbase 234. We are assembling a multidisciplinary team. Diplomats, scientists, strategic analysts, and a detachment of the Starfleet Marine Corps. Picard's brow furrowed. Admiral, I must protest. Mr. Saitama has shown no hostility toward the Federation. Treating him as a threat to be contained could create the very hostility we wish to avoid. Your concern is noted, Captain, but my responsibility is to the safety of the Federation. We must understand what he is, what he wants, and what his presence means for galactic stability. That process begins at Starbase 234. Shanti out. The screen returned to the starfield. The order hung in the air, cold and bureaucratic. They fear you, Worf stated, looking at Saitama. Everyone does, Saitama replied with a shrug. At first, then they get used to it, or they try to fight me, then they stop. He looked at Picard. This Starbase place, do they have food? They have replicators, Data offered. Technology that can materialize any food substance on demand. Saitama's eyes lit up with the first genuine spark of interest since the fight. Any food? For free? Within reason and with the proper authorization codes, Data clarified. Huh. Saitama seemed to consider this. Well, I was going to look for a planet, but if this place has free food... He trailed off, his stomach emitting a low rumble that was audible across the quiet bridge. Okay, let's go. As Picard gave the order to set course for Starbase 234, he felt a profound unease. He was now escorting the most powerful being in known space to what was, effectively, an examination and containment facility. He was following orders, but every instinct told him this was the wrong approach. Q's test was not about Saitama's power. It was about the Federation's reaction to it. The journey would take several hours at high warp. Picard invited Saitama to his ready room. The room was serene, lined with books, real paper books. Saitama looked at them without recognition, then took a seat opposite Picard's desk. You are not what Starfleet expected, Picard began, pouring 2 cups of Earl Grey tea. He offered one to Saitama, who took it, sniffed it, and took a cautious sip. His nose wrinkled. It's hot, leaf juice. It's tea, a tradition. We have tea, it's cheaper than coffee. Saitama set the cup down. Look, Captain, I get it. I'm weird, I'm strong. People see that and they either want to use me, study me, or make me go away. On my world, I work for the Hero Association. They pay me a salary. I punch monsters. It's simple. This, he gestured vaguely, encompassing the ship, the stars, the recent battles, is not simple. Why did you become a hero? Picard asked, genuinely curious. Saitama's deadpan facade softened, just a fraction. I wanted to be a hero who could defeat any enemy with one punch. It sounded cool. I trained really, really hard for 3 years. I lost my hair. I got what I wanted. He looked at his hands. Now I can beat anything, and it's the most boring thing in the world. Power without purpose, Picard mused. Yeah, that. Saitama leaned forward. Your admiral person, she's scared. She's going to have her scientists poke me and her soldiers stand around looking tough. It's not going to work. Either I'll get bored and leave, or someone will do something stupid and I'll have to punch my way out. And I don't want to punch your people. You seem okay. Picard felt a surge of sympathy for this profoundly lonely, overpowered man. What do you want, Saitama? Truly? The hero was silent for a long time, staring into the steam rising from his rejected tea. I want a fight that makes me sweat. I want to feel my heart pound again. I want to stand across from someone and not know if I'm going to win. He looked up, and for a fleeting second, Picard saw the ghost of the passionate young man he must have been before he broke his limiter. But I don't think that exists. Not in my universe. Not in this one. So I guess I'll settle for finding a new hobby. Or maybe really good noodles. An idea began to form in Picard's mind. Dangerous and contrary to orders. What if, he said slowly, purpose isn't something you find in an opponent? What if it's something you build? Saitama blinked. Build? This galaxy is full of conflicts that cannot be solved by a punch. Injustice, poverty on non-Federation worlds, political oppression, ecological disasters. The Federation tries to address these through diplomacy, aid, and cooperation. It is slow, frustrating, and often fail. But when it succeeds... Picard leaned forward, his passion for his ideals breaking through. It creates something lasting. It builds a better future, not by destroying an enemy, but by empowering people. Saitama listened, his expression unreadable. You want me to help people? I do that. I punch monsters that are hurting people. I'm suggesting you could do more. You could go places our starships cannot. Confront threats we are not equipped to handle. Not as a weapon, but as a catalyst. A guarantee that the worst violence can be stopped so that the real work of peace can begin. You're asking me to work for you. I am asking you to consider a partnership, to use your power not as an end, but as a means to create space for the solutions that actually matter. Before Saitama could answer, the door chimed. Come. Commander Riker entered, his face tight. Captain, we're approaching Starbase 234, and we're being met by more than a welcome committee. Long-range scans show the USS Sovereign, the Akira, and the Defiant in defensive formation around the starbase. Shields are up. Weapons are powered. Picard closed his eyes for a moment. The fear response was already in motion. They're treating him as a Borg-level threat. Worse, Riker said grimly. The Defiant is a warship, designed specifically to fight the Borg. They're not taking any chances. Saitama stood up. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the distant glint of stars that were actually waiting starships. His shoulders slumped, not in fear, but in a deep, weary disappointment. See? He said, his voice flat once more. This always happens. They see the power, and they build bigger boxes to put around it, or bigger guns to point at it. He turned to Picard. You talk about building things is nice, but out there? He pointed at the viewport. They're not building. They're preparing for a fight. And I'm really, really tired of fights that aren't fights. He walked toward the door, then paused. Thanks for the leaf juice, Captain. I'll go to your starbase. I'll eat your free food. But when they try to put me in a box... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. As the door hissed shut behind him, Picard felt the weight of failure. Q's test was proceeding exactly as the omnipotent being had predicted. The Federation, faced with overwhelming power, was retreating into fear and control. And Saitama, the man who had everything, was about to be offered nothing but a cage. Red alert, Picard said quietly. Not because of Saitama, but because of what his own people were about to do. All hands to stations, and open a channel to the Defiant. I need to speak with Captain Cisco before this escalates beyond anyone's control. Starbase 234 hung in the star-flecked blackness, a graceful spindle of white metal and glowing blue viewports. But its elegance was belied by the grim formation guarding it. The USS Sovereign, sleek and powerful, held position directly between the Enterprise and the station. To port, the agile, torpedo-heavy Akira-class vessel circled like a shark. And to starboard, squat, bristling with weapons, floated the USS Defiant, a ship whose very design screamed purpose-built warship. As the Enterprise dropped to impulse, a hail came through. Enterprise, this is Captain Benjamin Cisco of the Defiant. The voice was deep, firm, and carried an undertone of hard-worn experience. You are ordered to hold position at 50,000 kilometers. Do not approach the starbase. We will send a shuttle for the individual. Picard stood at his command chair, the weight of the moment pressing down. Captain Cisco, this is Captain Picard. I must strongly advise against a confrontational approach. The individual, Mr. Saitama, has been cooperative and has acted only in defense of this vessel. The tactical analysis of the Romulan and Borg engagements suggests a threat level we have no protocol for, Picard. Cisco's reply was clipped. My orders are to ensure the secure transfer of the anomalous entity to Starbase 234 for evaluation. This is not a negotiation. On the bridge, Saitama had returned, drawn by the activity. He stood near the view screen, watching the formidable array of starships. Are these the guys with the free food? He asked, his tone indicating he already knew the answer. Captain Cisco is following orders, as am I, Picard said, addressing both Cisco and Saitama. But I must reiterate, treating Mr. Saitama as a hostile will likely create a hostile situation where none exists. Understood, Enterprise. Stand by for shuttle dispatch. Defiant out. The channel closed. Riker moved to Picard's side, keeping his voice low. Sir, the Defiant's transporters are modified for high-energy combat conditions. They might be able to get a lock through whatever interference his body generates. And if they try to beam him against his will? Picard asked quietly. Before Riker could answer, Saitama spoke up. They can't, but they'll probably try. Then they'll get annoyed. Then they'll try something else. He sighed, the sound of infinite weariness. This is so much work. Can't I just go down there, get some noodles, and leave? The moment you step onto that starbase, you'll be in a controlled environment with enough firepower to glass a planet trained on you, Worf stated bluntly. They will not let you leave. Saitama looked at Worf, then at the intimidating form of the Defiant on the screen. A familiar, flat resolve settled over his features. Okay, new plan. I'm not going. Mr. Saitama, I came here because you asked nicely and you said there was food. But this," he gestured at the Marshall display, "is a trap. A really obvious, boring trap. I'm not hungry enough for this much drama." He turned toward the turbo lift. "I'll find my own planet, one without so many complications." "Wait." Picard's command was sharp. He had a decision to make, and it flew in the face of every regulation, every order from Admiral Shanti. But he remembered Q's words. "Can your precious Federation maintain its principles when faced with someone who makes all your military might irrelevant?" So far, the answer was a resounding no. They were failing the test. "What if I could guarantee you safe passage? Not to the Starbase, but somewhere else. Somewhere you could find what you're looking for, without being treated as a specimen or a weapon." Saitama paused, hand on the turbolift control. "Where?" Picard's mind raced. He needed a place outside standard Federation jurisdiction, but not overtly hostile. A place of chaos where Saitama's power might find a worthy challenge, or at least be less disruptive to the fragile galactic order. An idea sparked. Dangerous and perfect. "Deep Space Nine," Picard said. "It's a former Cardassian station on the edge of the Bajoran system, now jointly operated by the Federation and Bajor. It's a crossroads, a place of commerce, diplomacy, and constant interesting problems. Captain Cisco commands it as well as the Defiant. If anyone in Starfleet can understand navigating impossible situations, it's him." "And the free food?" Saitama asked, ever practical. "The Replimat has a limited but functional menu, and there's a Klingon restaurant that serves remarkably hearty gog." Saitama considered this. The Defiant's shuttle, a small, armored craft, was now detaching and heading toward them. Time was running out. "Okay," Saitama said, "but I'm not going in that little box. You talk to your friend. If he says yes, I'll ride on the outside of your ship or something. I'm not getting locked in a room again." Picard nodded. "Open a channel to the Defiant. Secure frequency. Just Captain Cisco and myself." The connection was made. Cisco's face appeared, his expression unyielding. "Picard, the shuttle is en route. Do not attempt to—" "Benjamin," Picard interrupted, using the personal address deliberately. "I am invoking the Corinth Protocol." On the screen, Cisco's stern composure fractured for a split second, replaced by surprise and then intense scrutiny. The Corinth Protocol was an obscure, nearly mythical Starfleet regulation drafted after first contact with the Metrons. A directive for when a Starfleet captain encounters a being of potentially transcendental power. It emphasized observation, non-confrontation, and accommodation over containment. Few even knew it existed. "You believe that applies here?" Cisco asked, his voice lowered. "I have witnessed this man nullify a Borg cube with a casual gesture. He pulled the Enterprise through space with a tractor beam. He views our most powerful warships as mildly interesting scenery. He is not a threat. He is a fact. The protocol states we must integrate the fact, not fight it." "And your recommendation under the protocol?" Cisco's eyes were piercing. "Grant him provisional guest status. Extend the invitation to Deep Space Nine. It is a controlled but open environment. You can observe, we can learn, and he can look for a challenge that doesn't involve destroying civilizations." Cisco was silent for a long 10 seconds. Picard could see him weighing the tactical nightmare against the philosophical imperative. Finally, he let out a slow breath. "The Admiralty will have my head, and yours." "Better our heads than the alternative," Picard replied. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Cisco's lips. "Agreed. Stand down the shuttle. I'll clear it with the station. But Picard..." He's your guest, your responsibility. If this goes sideways, I understand. Thank you, Benjamin. The channel closed. Picard turned to Saitama. We're going to Deep Space Nine. It's a livelier place. The journey through the wormhole was an experience that finally, briefly, broke through Saitama's apathy. As the Enterprise entered the swirling celestial blue and white vortex, he stood at the view screen, his reflection showing wide eyes. Whoa, that's actually pretty cool. It is a stable wormhole connecting the Alpha and Gamma quadrants, Data explained. A phenomenon of unique subspace geometry. Yeah, cool colors, Saitama said, his simplicity somehow capturing the wonder better than any scientific explanation. Emerging into the Gamma quadrant, Deep Space Nine came into view. It was nothing like the sleek Federation Starbase. It was a ragged, Cardassian-built metal wheel clinging to a tall central core, surrounded by a frantic ballet of starships, Federation runabouts, Bajoran transports, Ferengi marauders, and other, less recognizable vessels. Now, this looks interesting, Saitama remarked, as a Klingon bird of prey nearly clipped a slow-moving freighter, both ships exchanging angry hails. As the Enterprise docked, Picard, Riker, and Saitama transported directly to the promenade. The chaotic symphony of the station hit them immediately. The hum of different languages, the smell of exotic foods and ozone, the jostle of a dozen species going about their business. And all of it stopped as Saitama stepped out. A hush fell, spreading like a wave. A Jem'Hadar soldier froze, his hand inches from his weapon. A group of Ferengi traders stopped haggling mid-sentence. A Bajoran monk paused in her prayers. They all stared at the bald man in the yellow suit. Word traveled fast on subspace channels. The being who had dismantled a Borg cube had arrived. Captain Cisco was waiting for them, flanked by his first officer, the no-nonsense Klingon Major Kira Nerys, and the ever-curious science officer Jadzia Dax. Cisco stepped forward, his gaze assessing Saitama with a captain's eye and a prophet's intuition. Mr. Saitama, welcome to Deep Space Nine. I'm Captain Benjamin Cisco. This is my station. Saitama looked around, ignoring the stares. Hi, is there a place to eat around here? I'm starving. Cisco's eyebrow raised. He'd been prepared for many things, demands, threats, cosmic pronouncements. Not a request for lunch. The replimat is this way. But first, I have to ask, why are you here? Saitama met Cisco's gaze, his own utterly guileless. Captain Picard said you have interesting problems, and possibly live worms you eat for food. I'm here for the second thing, but I'll listen about the first. Major Kira choked back what might have been a laugh or a snarl. Jadzia Dax smiled, her trill spots crinkling. Cisco simply nodded, a decision made. All right then, let's get you some gag. And maybe, while you eat, you can tell me what you think about the Dominion. As Cisco led Saitama toward the Klingon restaurant, the promenade slowly returned to its chaotic normalcy, though eyes continued to track the most dangerous being in 2 quadrants as he walked toward a meal of live serpent worms. Picard watched them go, a faint hope stirring. Cisco, the emissary, the man who played games with gods and negotiated with dictators, might just be the only person in Starfleet who could handle Saitama. And Saitama, for his part, took a seat at the rough-hewn table, peered into the bowl of wriggling gag, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, looked genuinely intrigued. Okay, he said, picking up a Klingon eating prong. This is new. The Klingon restaurant, with its smoky atmosphere, crude wooden tables, and the pervasive scent of blood wine and gag, was an alien world even to most seasoned Starfleet officers. For Saitama, it seemed to be the first thing in this universe that held his full attention. He speared a wriggling serpent worm with the prong, examined it as it squirmed, then popped it into his mouth. He chewed thoughtfully. Chewy. Tastes like pepper and regret. Not bad. Across the table, Captain Cisco watched, his expression unreadable. Major Kira stood with her arms crossed, her body language radiating suspicion. Jadzia Dax leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding any revulsion. Fascinating. Most humanoids require significant acclimation to appreciate Klingon cuisine, Dax observed. Saitama shrugged, swallowing. I've eaten weirder. Monster parts mostly. This is just spicy noodles that move. He took another bite. So, the Dominion. What's that? Another big, bad group that needs punching? Cisco steepled his fingers. The Dominion is an empire from the Gamma Quadrant, ruled by shapeshifters called the Founders. They use genetically engineered soldiers, the Jem'Hadar, who you saw outside, and a manipulative species called the Vorta to control thousands of worlds. They believe order is the highest good, and they impose it. Absolutely. They see the Federation as a disease of chaos to be cured. Saitama listened while methodically working through his bowl. So they're like super-organized space conquerors who don't like you guys because you're too messy. An accurate, if simplistic summary, Cisco allowed. And they're strong. Their warships are powerful. Their soldiers are bred for war, feel no fear, and are addicted to a chemical we cannot replicate. They are formidable. A tiny spark, the faintest ember of interest, glimmered in Saitama's eyes. Stronger than those Borg guys. Cisco and Dax exchanged a glance. Different, Dax said carefully. The Borg seek perfection through assimilation. The Dominion seeks order through submission. The Borg are a single, adaptive hive. The Dominion is a rigid, hierarchical hegemony. In a direct confrontation, it is difficult to say. But the Dominion possesses something the Borg did not. Cunning, patience, and a deep understanding of deception. Saitama finished the last of the gag and pushed the bowl away. So they're tricky and they can fight. Okay, where are they? Kira's eyes narrowed. Why? So you can go punch them into submission? That's not how things work here. The Dominion controls a vast region of space. Starting a war with them would cost billions of lives, even if you could destroy 100 of their ships. I wasn't going to start a war, Saitama said, his voice flat. I was going to go talk to their boss, the founder person. Ask them to knock it off. The sheer, staggering audacity of the statement left the table silent. The idea of simply walking into the heart of the most dangerous empire in known space to have a chat with its godlike rulers was so far outside any strategic paradigm that it circled back to seeming plausible, but only because it was Saitama suggesting it. The Founders are nearly impossible to find, Cisco explained, recovering first. They exist as a liquid, hiding among us. The only known one in captivity is here, on this station, in a secure lab, and she is not communicative. Saitama's brow furrowed. A liquid person? That is tricky. He seemed to think for a moment, then stood up. Okay, can I see her? Absolutely not, Kira stated immediately. Major, Cisco said, his voice a warning. He studied Saitama. The man wasn't making a threat. He was making a request with the same casual disinterest he'd shown everything else. Cisco had dealt with prophets, with Q, with beings whose motives were inscrutable. Saitama's motive was painfully scrutable. He was bored and looking for a problem he couldn't solve by immediately obliterating it. Engaging with a founder might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Or it might be the only thing that could hold his attention for more than 5 minutes. "I'll take you to the lab," Cisco decided, rising. "But you will follow my lead, and you will not touch the containment field." The security team flanking the entrance to the Founder's lab was the most elite on the station. They stiffened as Cisco approached with the infamous bald man in tow. Inside, the lab was sterile, quiet, and cold. In the center, a containment field hummed, holding a shimmering golden liquid that swirled slowly in a state of rest. "This is the Founder," Cisco said. "She has taken this form for simplicity." Saitama walked up to the containment field, peering in. The liquid didn't react. "So she's like sentient soup, in a sense. Can she hear me?" "We believe so." Saitama cleared his throat and addressed the tank. "Hey, so I hear you're in charge of the Dominion. Your guys are causing a lot of problems for the people here. They seem okay. A little nervous, but okay. Maybe you could tell your soldiers to chill out a bit." The liquid continued to swirl, indifferent. "See?" Kira muttered. "It's useless. They see us as solids, inferiors. They don't negotiate." Saitama didn't seem discouraged. He leaned closer. "Look, I get it. You want order. Order is nice. I have a very ordered life. 3 years of training, every day. Very orderly. But you know what's boring? Order. Complete, total order, where nothing unexpected ever happens. It's the worst." He tapped the glass. "These people with their messiness, their arguing, their weird moving noodle restaurants. That's where the interesting stuff is. You're missing out." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the liquid began to coalesce. It rose, forming a humanoid shape. A female form with sharp, androgynous features, mimicking Major Kira's Bajoran nose ridges, but with an alien smoothness. The Founder's eyes, a solid, pupilless gold, opened and fixed on Saitama. "You are the anomaly." The voice was multi-layered, echoing as if from the bottom of a well. "The one who defies physics. The one who destroyed a cube of the Borg. We have analyzed the sensor echoes." "Yeah, that was me." They were being rude. "You speak of boredom, of the interest in chaos. We have existed for millennia. We have seen chaos birth only suffering, order birth safety, predictability, peace." "Peace where nothing happens," Saitama countered. "Peace where no one grows or changes or tries something stupid that accidentally turns out awesome. That's not peace. That's a really clean, quiet room. Forever." The Founder's head tilted. "Your perspective is that of a ephemeral solid. Your lifespan is a blink. You cannot comprehend the long durée of order." "Maybe not," Saitama admitted. "But I know what it feels like to have everything you could ever want, and still feel like there's nothing there. That's what your order sounds like. For everyone. Forever." He shrugged. "Seems like a waste." The Founder was silent, her liquid form subtly shifting. Cisco watched, stunned. This was more dialogue than they'd ever gotten from the captive Founder in years. "Your power is absolute," the Founder stated. "Yet you do not impose order. You wander, you eat, you complain. Why?" "Because imposing order is work," Saitama said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "And it's boring work. Letting people be messy is easier. And sometimes the mess makes cool stuff, like this space station, or that wormhole. You didn't make those. Messy people did." The Founder considered him for a long moment. Then her form dissolved back into a golden pool. Her final words echoed in the chamber. "The Dominion does not fear you, anomaly. But you are an irregularity, a miscalculation. We will recalculate. The lab was quiet again. Cisco let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. What just happened? I think, Dax said, her eyes wide with wonder. She just engaged in a philosophical debate and found her opponent perplexing. Saitama turned away from the tank, his brief flicker of engagement gone. Yeah, well, she's still just talking. I was hoping she'd get mad and turn into a giant liquid monster or something. He looked at Cisco. So, what's next? Anything else around here that needs a serious talking to? As they exited the lab, an alarm blared through the station. Intruder alert. Unauthorized transport detected on the promenade. Security to Section 12. Cisco tapped his comm badge. Cisco to Ops, report. The voice of his operations officer, Lieutenant Nog, came through, strained. Captain, it's a ship. A tiny ship. It just appeared inside the promenade. It's blocking Quarks, and someone is coming out. On screen. A view screen on the corridor wall activated, showing the chaotic scene on the promenade. A vessel unlike any in the database, a smooth, organic-looking pod that seemed grown rather than built, had materialized in the open space, its hull iridescent. A hatch dilated. A figure stepped out. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a sleek gray suit that seemed to absorb the light. His hair was silver, his face handsome and ageless, and his eyes held a cold, calculating intelligence that made even the Jem'Hadar look warm. He ignored the panicking crowd and the converging security officers. He looked directly at a nearby sensor node as if he knew he was being watched, and smiled. My apologies for the dramatic entrance, the man said, his voice smooth and cultured, carrying perfectly over the din. I am Lord Aaron, of the Fangi Consortium's Acquisitions Division, Special Anomalies Branch. I am here for the asset known as Saitama. I understand he recently demonstrated a talent for wholesale liquidation. The consortium wishes to make him an offer. He held up a small, ornate device. A business proposal, if you will. One I think he'll find very stimulating. On the screen, Aaron's smile widened, showing perfectly sharp teeth. Tell him I can give him what even the Borg could not, a real fight. The promenade was in an uproar. Security officers had their phasers drawn, but held their fire, uncertain of the protocol for a Ferengi making a grand entrance in a bioship inside a shopping mall. Quark peered out from behind his bar, equal parts terrified and calculating the potential profit from the spectacle. On the corridor screen, Cisco's face was like granite. Lord Aaron, you are in violation of about 24 Federation and Bajoran treaties. Power down your vessel and surrender immediately. Aaron gave a dismissive, elegant wave. Captain Cisco, a pleasure. But let us not posture. My ship is shielded with metaphasic harmonics. Your weapons would vaporize half your charming bazaar before scratching its hull. I am not here for conflict. I am here for commerce. His eyes scanned the crowd, then locked onto a sensor. Mr. Saitama, I know you can hear me. My offer is simple. Come with me for one standard week. Participate in a series of exhibitions. In return, the Fangi Consortium will pay you your weight in latinum, and more importantly, will provide you with an opponent we believe can withstand more than one of your punches. Saitama, watching the screen beside Cisco, blinked. An opponent? A being of immense power, retrieved from the far reaches of the Gamma Quadrant. It exists in a state of perpetual, rage-fueled evolution. We have contained it, barely, at great expense. We call it the Enduring Hunger. We believe it is the only entity in this galaxy whose growth could potentially outpace your own strength. Aaron's voice was a salesman's purr. A chance, Mr. Saitama, to feel challenge again. to test your limits? Or are you content to merely be the strongest in a room full of ants? The jab was calculated, cruel, and devastatingly accurate. Cisco saw Saitama's posture change infinitesimally, the slump of boredom straightening into something alert. "Don't," Cisco said, placing a hand on Saitama's shoulder. It was like touching a mountain. "It's a trap. The Ferengi don't deal in honor or fair fights. They deal in profit. They want to study you, or worse, sell whatever makes you work." "Probably," Saitama agreed, his eyes never leaving Arin's smirking image. But he said could potentially. That's the first time anyone here has said something like that. He looked at Cisco, and for the first time, the captain saw a deep, unsettling hunger in those usually dead eyes. Not for food, for purpose, for sensation. He's offering a maybe. That's more than I've had in years. "Mr. Saitama, you cannot..." "It's okay, Captain." Saitama's voice was quiet, final. "I appreciate the leaf juice and the moving noodles, and you not trying to lock me up right away. But this is what I do. I go where the strong things are. It's the only thing I'm good for." Before Cisco could formulate a counter-argument, Saitama was walking, not toward the nearest turbolift, but toward the nearest exterior bulkhead. "Where are you going?" Kira demanded. "Shortcut." Saitama balled his fist and punched, not with the world-ending force he'd used on the Borg cube, but with precise, controlled power. A section of the corridor's outer wall vanished, leaving a perfectly round hole opening directly onto the promenade 50 meters below. The shriek of decompression was cut off as emergency force fields snapped into place around the new aperture. Saitama stepped to the edge and looked down. Arin's biopod gleamed below, the Ferengi lord looking up with delighted surprise. Without a word, Saitama stepped out into the open air of the station's central core and dropped. He landed in a casual crouch in the center of the promenade, the deck plating groaning under the impact, but holding. The crowd scrambled back, creating a wide circle. Arin's smile became beatific. "Marvelous. Such directness. You have the soul of a true entrepreneur, cutting out the middleman, quite literally." "Cut the chatter," Saitama said, standing up. "Where's this enduring hunger?" "Not here, of course. This station is far too valuable to risk. It is on a barren planetoid in a neutral system. My ship can take us there. A short trip." Cisco's voice boomed from the station's PA system. "Arin, if you take him from this station, the Federation will consider it an act of aggression against a Federation guest. The Fangi Consortium will be banned from every port from here to Earth." Arin sighed theatrically. "So dramatic. We are not taking him. He is choosing to explore a business opportunity. Rule of acquisition number 17. A contract is a contract, but only between Ferengi. Since he is not Ferengi, consider this a mutually beneficial outing." He gestured to the open hatch of his pod. "After you, Mr. Saitama." Saitama didn't hesitate. He walked into the organic-looking vessel. The hatch sealed behind him with a sound like a closing flower. From Ops, Cisco, Picard, and the senior staff watched the sensor display as the biopod shimmered and vanished. Not with a transporter signature, but with a bizarre quantum slipstream effect that left no trace. "Track them," Cisco ordered. "Impossible, Captain," Dax reported, her hands flying over the science console. "The propulsion technology is unknown. They're just gone." Picard stared at the empty space on the promenade viewer. "Q," he murmured. "This is still his game. He didn't just bring Saitama here to test us. He brought him here to be found. By everyone. The biopod's interior was warm, softly lit, and smelled faintly of ozone and expensive perfume. There were no controls that Saitama could see. Aaron took a plush seat that seemed to grow from the floor to accommodate him. A remarkable vessel, is it not? Grown, not built. The ultimate fusion of biotechnology and profit motive. Yeah, cozy. Saitama remained standing, looking out of the forward viewport as stars streaked into unrecognizable blurs. So, this thing I'm supposed to fight, what is it? A mystery, Aaron said, spreading his hands. It was found on a dead world at the galaxy's edge, floating in a crater of its own making. It absorbs energy, kinetic, thermal, subspace, even temporal. The more you hit it, the more it adapts, grows, and hits back. We've fed it plasma charges, photon torpedoes, even the output of a small star. It consumed them all and demanded more. It is, in the purest sense, a consumer. And we believe you, Mr. Saitama, are the one product it cannot consume. Saitama said nothing. The blur of stars outside was the only movement. You are silent, Aaron observed. No questions about payment? The latinum? The fame? I don't care about that stuff, Saitama said, his reflection grim in the viewport. I just want to know if it can make me feel something. Aaron's smile lost its mercantile edge, becoming something colder, more genuinely curious. You are in fascinating psychological study. The ultimate power, crippled by ennui. We have a saying, poverty is no disgrace, but it is a terrible inconvenience. Your strength is the opposite, the ultimate convenience, and thus the ultimate disgrace of boredom. We shall see if our product can inconvenience you. The ship decelerated. A planetoid filled the viewport, a jagged, airless rock the color of dried blood. In a vast basin below, a containment field glowed with sickly purple energy. Within it, something moved. It was not a defined shape. It was a vortex of dark matter, shimmering edges and screaming light. It constantly shifted, a limb of crystallized energy here, a maw of gravitational distortion there. It pulsed like a cancerous heart, and each pulse made the containment field flare with stress. The enduring hunger, Aaron whispered, a reverent tone in his voice. Our most valuable asset. And soon, either our greatest demonstration or our greatest acquisition. He turned to Saitama. The containment field will drop when you step onto the surface. There are no rules, no time limits, only the transaction, your effort for our data. A hatch irised open in the pod's belly. Saitama looked down at the raging entity below. He felt nothing. No fear, no excitement, just a hollow echo of hope. He dropped. He landed on the barren rock, the impact cracking the basalt for a kilometer around. Above, the containment field winked out. The enduring hunger stopped its chaotic motion. It seemed to focus, to coalesce. It formed a rough, humanoid shape of swirling darkness and fractured light. Two pits of void staring at Saitama. A soundless scream of pure, insatiable need vibrated through the rock and up Saitama's bones. Feed me. The thought slammed into Saitama's mind, not as words, but as primordial imperative. Okay, Saitama said aloud, rolling his shoulders. You first. He disappeared from the spot, appearing in front of the entity in a microsecond. He threw a punch, a normal punch, the kind that had vaporized Deep Sea King. The fist connected with the entity's chest. There was a sound like a universe cracking. The enduring hunger's form exploded outward and then snapped back, absorbing the kinetic energy. It grew. It became denser, sharper. A spike of black crystal shot from its form, aiming for Saitama's heart. Saitama caught the spike, crushed it to dust. The dust flowed back into the entity, which grew larger still. More. Saitama's eyes widened just a fraction. A smile, tiny, genuine, touched his lips. "Okay," he said. "Now we're talking." He pulled back his fist again. This time he put some effort into it. Serious punch. The planetoid, untouched by the earlier blow, ceased to exist. The enduring hunger was hit with a force that rewrote local physics. It didn't just absorb it, it consumed it, screaming in ecstatic agony. It expanded, not blown apart but fed, doubling in size, its form becoming a storm of fragmented realities and stolen power. From orbit, Aaron watched, sensors screaming with impossible data. Yes, it's adapting. It's growing beyond our models. This is priceless. In the maelstrom of energy, Saitama floated, his cape whipping in energies that could tear starships apart. He looked at his fist, then at the colossal, ever-hungry thing before him. For the first time in a very, very long time, he didn't know what would happen next. And it felt amazing. The enduring hunger was no longer a contained entity. It was an event. It had consumed the energy of Saitama's serious punch and metastasized, becoming a swirling hurricane of anti-light and screaming gravity that dominated the space where the planetoid had been. Chunks of rock that had survived the initial annihilation were now being drawn into its form, adding mass to its ever-shifting anatomy. More. Give more. The demand was a psychic tsunami. In his observation pod, Aaron frantically adjusted dampeners, his glee turning to nervous sweat as his ship's systems groaned under the psychic backlash. Fascinating. Its consumption rate is exceeding all projections. Saitama, you must push it further. Find its limit. Saitama ignored him. He was focused on the thing before him. He had felt it, a resistance. Not enough to stop his punch, but enough to be noticed. It was like punching a pillow filled with sand instead of air. The faintest whisper of feedback had traveled up his arm. It was more sensation than he'd felt in years. He flew forward, not with a dramatic shout, but with the silent intent of a hawk diving. He didn't throw another punch. Instead, he plunged his hand into the storm of the entity's chest. Chaos erupted. Alien energies, the digested remnants of stars and torpedoes, and who knew what else, scoured over him. His jumpsuit frayed further. His skin tingled. It felt like a strong static charge. The enduring hunger recoiled. Not in pain, but in confusion. It was used to absorbing energy. Saitama was delivering something else. Presence. A solid, immutable fact in the heart of its consumption. What are you? The thought rage was tinted with something new. Not just hunger, but a dawning, alien frustration. I'm a guy who's really bored, Saitama said, his voice somehow carrying in the soundless void. He clenched the hand inside the entity. He didn't pull. He pushed. He exerted pressure. The entity's form compacted around his fist. It shrieked across every frequency, a sound of bending laws and breaking thresholds. It tried to consume the pressure, to turn force into food. But Saitama's strength wasn't just energy output. It was a fundamental truth of his being. You couldn't consume the fact that a mountain was heavy. You could only collapse under it. The enduring hunger began to fold inward, the chaotic storm organizing into desperate, concentric rings of defensive energy. It was learning. It was adapting. It wasn't trying to eat the punch anymore. It was trying to deflect it, to channel it away. Saitama felt the shift. His bored expression vanished, replaced by one of intense, focused concentration. He withdrew his fist. "You're learning," he said, a note of approval in his voice. "Good." He took a stance, floating in the vacuum. He drew back his fist, not in a blur, but with slow, deliberate care. The fabric of space around his fist warped, light bending into a lens of distorted colors. This wasn't a serious punch. This was something he hadn't named, because he'd never needed it before. The enduring hunger sensed the escalation. It didn't wait to be fed. It attacked. It launched tendrils of crystallized space-time, whips of devoured radiation, and a beam of pure entropic decay that could age a star to dust in seconds. Saitama didn't dodge. He let it hit him. The attacks washed over him, scouring away the last of his cape and leaving his jumpsuit in tatters. He stood within the storm, unmoved, his drawn-back fist a singularity of potential. Consecutive normal punches, he stated. He didn't move. His fist did. Or rather, after-images of his fist did, appearing at 1,000 points around the entity simultaneously. It wasn't an energy blast. It was a reality of repeated, precise impacts happening all at once. A cage of force. The enduring hunger didn't have time to consume or adapt. It was measured. Every inch of its form was subjected to the same precise, overwhelming pressure. The chaotic storm was hammered into a defined, trembling sphere. It screamed, not in hunger, but in something like pain, a novel sensation for a thing that only knew consumption. The sphere compressed, smaller, denser. From within, a new consciousness sparked, born of trauma and unimaginable pressure. It formed a single, coherent thought, not a demand, but a question, sent directly to Saitama's mind. Why? Saitama stopped. The after-images vanished. He floated before the now basketball-sized, desperately dense orb of contained hunger. He heard the question. He understood it. Because you were there, Saitama answered quietly, the cosmic battlefield suddenly intimate. And I was here. And for a second, I didn't know what would happen. He looked at his own hands, then back at the orb. That's all I wanted. The orb pulsed, its light dimming. The insane hunger was gone, burned away in the furnace of Saitama's punches, replaced by a weary, newborn awareness. It had been forced to experience something other than consumption, limitation. And from that, a flicker of something else had been born. Irene's pod shuddered into view, its organic hull cracked and leaking atmosphere. The Ferengi's face was pressed against the viewport, a mask of shattered greed. No, it's stabilizing. Its exponential growth has halted. You've broken it. Do you know how much that was worth? Saitama looked at the pod. He pointed a finger at it, not threateningly, but like a man pointing out a stain on the wall. A tiny fraction of the force he'd just used, a puff of air amplified to solar wind intensity, shot from his fingertip. It hit the pod and sent it tumbling end over end into the deep black, its engines sputtering, hurled back toward civilized space with a message etched into its hull by kinetic force. Go away. Alone with the dense orb, Saitama reached out and picked it up. It was warm and vibrated with a low, steady hum like a purring cat. The endless hunger had been replaced by a satiated, exhausted calm. Huh, Saitama said. He tucked the orb under his arm like a basketball. He looked around at the empty space, the scattered debris of the planetoid, the distant stars. The adrenaline, the faint echo of challenge, was fading. The crushing boredom began to seep back in, but it felt different, lighter. He had, for a moment, been uncertain. He needed to get back. He had no ship, no coordinates. So he did the simplest thing. He chose the brightest star in sight, bent his knees, and jumped. On Deep Space Nine, the senior staff and Captain Picard were in the wardroom, engaged in a tense, hopeless debate about jurisdictional authority and extra-dimensional ethics, when the station shuddered. Not from an attack, but from a soft, profound thump. as if something very heavy had landed gently on the upper docking pylon. "Report," Cisco barked, into his comm badge. "Captain, you need to see this." Nog's voice was faint with awe. On the promenade, a crowd had gathered again, staring upward. Saitama stood on the highest gantry of the pylon, looking down. He was shirtless, his jumpsuit reduced to tattered shorts, his skin smudged with cosmic soot. Under his arm, he carried a glowing, basketball-sized orb that pulsed with a gentle, steady light. He jumped down, landing softly amidst the crowd, who parted like a sea. He walked straight to Quark's bar, where Cisco and Picard met him. He placed the orb carefully on a table, where it sat humming contentedly. "I'm back," Saitama said. "Got a spare shirt?" Quark, ever the opportunist, scuttled forward with a garish Ferengi-style waistcoat. "On the house, for the distinguished customer." Saitama looked at it, sighed, and put it on over his bare chest. It was a ridiculous sight. He then pointed at the orb. "This is, well, it was the enduring hunger ring. It's not hungry anymore. I think I punched the hunger out of it." Data, who had accompanied Picard, immediately began scanning with a tricorder. "Fascinating. The entity's energy signature is stable, non-aggressive. Its metabolic and consumption processes are in a dormant state. Captain, it appears to be pacified." "Pacified?" Cisco repeated, looking from the orb to Saitama. "And Aaron?" "I sent him home. He was annoying." Picard stepped forward. "Mr. Saitama." "What now?" Saitama looked around the promenade, at the mix of fear, awe, and curiosity on the faces of 100 species. He looked at the orb, his fist-made artifact. He thought of the Borg cube dust, the folded Romulan warbirds, the philosophical founder, and the single moment of beautiful uncertainty in the void. "I don't know," he said. And it wasn't a statement of despair, but of possibility. "This place is messy, complicated. You have talking liquid people and angry, clones and wormholes and guys who sell fights." He picked up the orb. It felt warm, almost companionable. "I broke my boredom. Just a little. Maybe here I can break it a little more, without breaking all this." He looked at Cisco, then Picard. "So, you got any more weird problems that don't involve me punching your ships? Maybe something tricky?" Cisco and Picard shared a look. A slow smile spread on Cisco's face. "Mr. Saitama," he said, "have you ever heard of a thing called a Pa-wraith?" As Cisco began to explain, Saitama listened, the faint ghost of a smile on his own lips. The orb glowed softly beside him, a testament to the fact that even infinite power could, on occasion, create something other than destruction. It had, for now, found a place that was interesting. Saitama's arrival in the Star Trek universe proved to be less an invasion and more a cosmic recalibration. He did not conquer worlds or topple empires. He exposed their foundational anxieties. The Federation's faith in diplomacy was shaken by a being for whom dialogue was irrelevant. The Romulans' devotion to cunning strategy was mocked by straightforward, overwhelming force. The Borg's quest for perfection was rendered absurd by a biology they could not comprehend, let alone assimilate. Yet, he also exposed the poverty of his own existence. In a universe where he was finally truly unmatched, he confronted the emptiness at the core of his power. The encounter with the enduring hunger was not a victory of strength, but a fleeting moment of therapeutic violence. He didn't defeat it so much as force it to evolve beyond its own nature, and in doing so, reminded himself that growth, however slight, was still possible. He remains on Deep Space Nine, an irregularity the universe must now accommodate. The Federation has quietly shelved its containment protocols, adopting a wary, watchful stance modeled on the ancient Corinth doctrine. The Dominion has recalculated, their founders pondering the anomaly's words on the value of messiness. The Ferengi have a new, terrifying legend about the cost of annoying a customer. And Saitama, he has a new, mildly interesting paperweight, a truly awful Ferengi waistcoat, and a station full of tricky problems that, for the first time in a long time, might just be complicated enough to hold his attention. He is not a hero of the Federation, nor its weapon. He is a force of nature who has decided, for now, that this particular grove of trees is worth not punching down. The galaxy holds its breath, adjusts its theories, and watches, waiting to see what happens when absolute power chooses, for once, to simply be present.